Do you want to level faster? Hi, Zizaran here with another, this is going to be a fairly generic build. It's not really a build guide. And what we're doing for this video is I want to cover some of the tips and tricks for leveling with like more generic things. Everyone knows like the generic things like a tabula rasa, a gold rim, and a wanderlust, right? They're very common leveling items. But something I do a lot in my play with me series is I especially focus very hard on not using a tabula rasa, because it is in fact not one of the best things. And I want to cover a little bit on like different or alternative leveling items that are really good for leveling regardless of what build you're playing. Pretty much every spell build, one of the things is making a plus one like level 1. So the first thing you do is you do just kill Hillock with a level 2 character, and then you de-level it to level 1. As you saw, we used 1 wisdom and 1 scouring. And then the reason we do this is then everything here is going to be item level 2. Now the good thing about this is that it's actually almost the same at level 3. It doesn't matter that much, but there are like less mods. So when I do this, there's a very big chance. I'm very happy that happened in the first trial run. It was actually the first run too. As you can see, this is now +1 fire spell skill gems, which is great. So this would be really good for leveling you know, any fire skill. But and there are more things we'll show there too, and that works with like everything. The reason why it's so easy to make them with essences is because at item level 2 there are barely any prefixes except the +1 gem level. So obviously you can't get +1 spell level, but there's so few prefixes, so it's very easy to get +1 chaos, +1 fire, +1 lightning, plus physical, or wherever frigid is, plus cold, right? So all of those are very easy to get at low levels. I always make sure very early league that I make 2 of each, so that if I do need to level new characters, that's like huge at low levels. That, you know, the instant you put that on, a level 1 skill is level 3. And the reason these are so much better, and you should never for any reason under any circumstance use a life spring, is if you're using a life spring, it's only the socketed gems. With this one, you can have a 6-linked fireball, and that's getting +1. So that's incredibly strong. There is another thing that's really good, and that's chucking, for example, a screaming essence on a driftwood one that's this level. Same concept. It's now like level 46 to be required, but I'll show you a best case scenario of one that's really good here. So here's like the best case scenario when you're using a screaming essence. And this is particularly good if it hits +1 chaos, or if it hits +1 cold, because that's really good for like the cold dot and the chaos dot skills. What you would do is, like, let's say that this was +1 chaos, then I'd have the really high spell damage, +1 chaos, and I can craft like 22 or 28 or whatever chaos damage over time multiplier. This is an endgame one, right? This is really good. You can craft like the 4C cold damage to spells. You can craft, you know, it's a pretty decent starter one. Seeing as they are like based on your character level, you could actually get an item level 2 or 12 or whatever you want, imbued one, because we do get one as an Act 9 quest reward. So something Carvaruscu did was he leveled the character to Act 9, de-leveled it after doing the imbued 1 quest, and then received the quest, so he got an item level 2 imbued 1. So you can do this. Then you don't lose that 30 extra spell damage. So if you really want to optimize on a like a nice budget one, that is it's an option. Probably not going to do it myself. I'd be too lazy for that, but at least the re-leveling will go pretty quick too. As far as like how often you hit these with screaming essences, honestly, I just do it as a side thing, because I don't feel like I have that many like good uses. So we can try like throwing a couple on here, but either way, like, it's a fairly decent one. Here we got one that's +1 fizz spell damage, and sadly it doesn't have the open prefix. So I could craft something like Trigger Wand, which is something like, you know, it's kind of like cast on cast or cast on action, and you could have things like Cold Snap or other good abilities like Bone Offering, Flesh Offering, depending if you're a Necro. But you know, this is still a pretty good wand that could, you know, you can kill a Wicked on this on a lot of builds. Obviously Tabula, or a plus gem level socketed gems Tabula, so you know, +2 AoE skills, duration, like they're awesome for leveling, really strong. +1 all gems, really strong as well, because then you can use an empower very early. There's a belt called Darkness Enthroned, which is like pretty much the best leveling belt, because what some of you might not know is you can roll no level requirement abyss jewels. So for example here, these are shitty ones because I haven't like had, I think I lost my only one that was low level and decent. But you can roll, for example, for spell ones, you can have 1 to 8 lightning damage to spells while dual wielding or while wielding a shield, and that'll be required level 0, as long as you don't have anything else. Like if you augment it and you get like 30 int or 20 int or whatever, then it has the level. So be careful with augmenting those. I generally will roll until I get just one stat. Like this, I wouldn't augment this, because if I augment it, it's going to be high level required, probably. If you don't have a Darkness Enthroned, then you can use a Stygian Wise instead. Just scour it. If you roll something on it, then it does get a required level. Same concept. But let's talk about other things. There's a lot of other belts as well than a Stygian Wise or a Darkness Enthroned. Replica Prism Weave is actually pretty decent, because on this, it just has a shit ton of LE damage, and you don't need to worry about like constantly replacing your jewels. They're just really good. This is required level 25, but yeah, Replica Prism Weave, really, really good. And speaking about replicas, the Replica Karui Ward or a normal Karui Ward are both really good as well. This one's good for projectiles, and then we have the Replica Karui Ward is good for AoE skills. And very, very important thing, Anointing Diamond Skin is actually really cheap and really good. It's just a teal, sepia, and clear oil. Definitely do recommend that. There are some more good leveling ones. Like some people like doing dark arts if you're nowhere near here, and other people enjoy doing Fleetfoot. But this is an opalescent oil, so if you don't have a lot of those lying around, then you don't want to do that on a leveling item. For melee, we have both Belted the Deceiver is really good, and Meganor's Girdle. Belted the Deceiver can be a little bit deceiving, because obviously the damage doesn't show up in the tooltip. The nearby enemies intimidated is that your nearby enemies take 10% more damage, which is quite a lot, whereas Meganor's Girdle, since it has the 5 to 15 physical damage to attacks, is what's going to appear on your tooltip as doing more damage. Generally, Belted the Deceiver is best for most things. And back to spell builds again, Barracks Grip or Barracks Pass are usually very cheap. I usually prefer using Grip. It depends. Obviously, this is fire damage, this is cold damage, and it has a heap of damage to spells and attacks. So they're very, very good for leveling with. Incredibly strong. This one does have Leech against shocked and frozen enemies. This one just, it has the damage. And it does have resist as well. So they're like incredibly strong. Sometimes in these, they're all the way down to 1 Chaos Orb. And they do make leveling just a delight. They're awesome. Sacrificial Heart as well, usually very cheap. Now, what's special about this is you'll see that it just adds damage. It's just fire damage, cold damage, and lightning damage. What's special about this is this damage will go on your Herald of Thunder as well. Spell damage doesn't affect Heralds. This is global damage. It'll go on your Herald, any explosion, anything. It's not an attack, it's not spell, it just goes on everything. So that is really, really good. And one of my favorite leveling items. This is both for spells and melee, but just like for one jewel slot, getting non-channeling skills have -9 mana cost can be really, really good. And speaking of mana cost, Praxis is another good unique for leveling as well. I generally don't use them. They do go up to -8 total mana cost of skills, but I don't feel like I really need them, and I generally always try to prefer using Barracks. Thief's Torment as well. I don't have one to show off, but the Thief Ring, it just disable your other ring slot, but if you're leveling an attack skill, it's basically infinite mana and infinite life gain on hit. And especially if you're doing something with very high attack speed, like a Barrage character, kind of immortal while leveling as long as you don't get one shot. Other than that, you can see that I have Flasks in here, and I feel like this is probably the #1 thing that new players like don't use enough, and that is Flasks. Flasks while leveling, especially a Granite Flask, makes you borderline immortal. While this Flask is up, you're probably not going to take a lot of damage. Jade Flask as well is really good. Generally, I would use something like a Quicksilver, a Silver, a Granite, and a Jade Flask. Sometimes if Quartz, because Quartz is really nice too, but that's more endgame. Another thing for melee as well, Limb Split or something like that early on can be really good. And upgrading to the Cauterizer from a Prophecy, that's definitely enough to take you to like mid-yellow maps. Cauterizer is surprisingly strong. And do remember that essences are very, very good for early leveling if you're a melee character. I just wanted to make a quick video to give out like some tips like this, because a lot of this is probably things that I take for granted, but it might help a lot of you on your leveling journey. Now, the number one tip for leveling or anything, just as soon as your character hits level 70, so I guess this is just like the start of maps, if you are playing a spell build, the number one damage increase you can do is to buy a level 20 crafted gem. If you're going from level 19 to level 20 Essence Drain or Magma Orb or anything like that, is at least a 15% more damage. It is a very, very big upgrade. If you're going from 17 to 20, it's something like a 45% more damage. Basically the same as going from a 5 link to a 6 link. And most of the time, this is going to cost you 1 or 5 chaos. And this is why you see so many people investing into level 21 gems. So it's very frustrating whenever I am helping people with their build and I see a level 18 gem and I'm like, you're on Trade League, bro. This is 1 chaos. Very often these people would be like, hey, I have 5x to invest in stuff. How do I improve my damage? So do remember, that is the number one thing you can do. Is just have a required level of level 70, but very worth the effort. So hopefully this video helps some of you. If you have any tips or things that I maybe left out, because I don't remember everything either. It's a very big game. Feel free to post them in the comments down below. And yeah, maybe there'll be some even better tips there. Hope this helps some of you, and please let me know if it does. Thanks for watching. Hope you're having an excellent day, and try to die less than I do.